It's critical to understand the history of gentrification and the history of Soho, primarily because so many of the great works of urban history, particularly the focus on the United States after World War II, focused on the decline of the city and the rise of the suburbs. We know a lot about so-called white flight of urban ethnics, the increased neighborhood segregation, the failure of urban renewal to address some of these issues, and the rise of the suburbs. But there's little to explain why, seemingly in the last 10 or 20 years, neighborhoods in New York, Chicago, San Francisco have gotten so expensive and undergone such a complete process of gentrification.
Was Soho the first neighborhood to undergo that kind of radical transformation?
I think in Soho you started to see a new form of gentrification, one that was led by artists. And there's so much focus in particular on the role of artists in urban development, from Richard Florida's work on the creative class to the National Endowment for the Arts and their funding of creative placemaking projects. But in Soho, for the first time, you saw artists really take the lead in a process that resulted in the transformation of an industrial district to a residential one for the first time.
Aren't they screwing themselves? They then moved on to Tribeca after Soho became too expensive, and then they were forced out of Tribeca, went to Williamsburg. Williamsburg's now too expensive. We can go on and on and on.
Right. And that's really, in my book, that's the what I try to get at is the roots of the process you're mentioning, this assumption that artists, almost by their very nature, are going to attract real estate investment, attract yuppies to come and live in their neighborhoods. But clearly that was not the case in the early days of Soho. In fact, artists really had to work to convince people that they should be paid attention to and supported through appropriate policies.